It's been a few months since my last video, but we finally have a completed anime to talk about. So, Tsuma Show, from the thumbnail alone, you're probably wondering why I consider this anime my anime of the year. Before I explain the simple reason for that, I want to highlight a few moments in the anime that I really love. First off, the entire arc of Chica, while she started off as a failure of a mother based on the optics alone, the comeback that she had throughout the series, it was beautiful to see. A great example that it's never too late to pivot and be a good parent. And her change was integral to contextualize the ending that had to happen in this anime. Second, Episode 8 was probably the most important episode of the entire series because knowing how Chica started to change for the better, we finally had the foundation as to why Takae had to move on from Kesuke and Mai. She cannot stay in Marika's body forever as that would rob Marika of living life. Finding out that Takae was not reincarnated but had instead made an accidental possession of Marika's body during Marika's time of distress gave everyone a clear objective on where this story has to end. And while this was already hinted since the start of the series, episode 8 made it an imperative. And for us, the audience, just like Kesuke and Mai, we finally got our memo that we have to prepare for the inevitable. Third, in episode 10, you know the scene where Mai and Renji performed a practice run of their wedding vows for Takae to witness? I nearly cried watching this scene. It was really rough because, as someone who, if given the chance to have a wife and kids, the idea that you're already on borrowed time and you'll never make it to your child's most important day of their life, it's soul crushing, and I could feel Take was like that during that scene. She knew she couldn't be there, and this was the best she could get. It made me realize how fragile time is, and that if you can still spend time with your parents, make the most of it. You'll never know when the time is up, and during this moment, she wasn't aware that her practice run was Takai already saying that she won't make it. Finally, Kesuke and Moria. I know during the start of the series we've been clowning on Kesuke because of the numerous instances where his actions could have sent him to jail, but how he handled his grief and the process of moving on for Takai, it wasn't the cleanest in terms of execution. Not to say that it had to be clean because I'm aware life never really lets us do it that way. But he did so well in accepting reality, and I really feel for him throughout this series because his devotion to Takai, I imagine I'll probably be like him if hypothetically my wife died so suddenly. So I never really laughed whenever he grieved at the possibility of Takai moving on for good, because it could have been me who's crying like a child if the same happened to me. I don't have a strong heart, so I know how hard his situation is. As for Moria, while her engagement to Kesuke turned out to be fake, I like to imagine that down the line, she and Kesuke will eventually marry. It may not be during the series where such an idea isn't appropriate, but considering their chemistry, I just had that feeling it would happen. It had Takaya's approval, and she's just a great person, all things considered, and Kesuke knows that. As for the simple reason why I found this anime to be my anime of the year, while I can see the merits of other animes such as Dungeon Meshi, Spice and Wolf Remake, Makeine, Shoshimin, Dandadan, On the Movements of the Earth, and some others, Sumasho dealt with a very personal theme in my life, which is grief. I may not be someone who suddenly lost a wife like Kesuke or a mother like Mai, but grieving is something I do almost all the time these days. Why? Without going into detail, I never got to live the past decade of my life authentically. Like, I lived on the foundation of lies when I was younger, which caused me to make so many mistakes that it robbed me of living those formative years in a way that is true to myself. I've been distancing myself from all of those lies, and the mere thought of me lying would make me shiver, actually. It's not easy. I occasionally cry in my room knowing that who I am today is the result of many mistakes, and the life I could have had instead today, it just does not exist. I mean, I'm trying to course correct to start anew this past few years, and Tsuma Show, this anime helped me process the things I've been grieving about because it made me reflect. Sure, many people are saying that the anime adaptation suffered from pacing issues and that the story could have been fleshed out better. I agree, but at least for me, who's been watching seasonal anime for years, I could at least figure out when the pacing isn't ideal, and it didn't detract me from the story that the author was trying to tell. So, if you're watching this, Murata Sensei, thank you for this story. I loved it, and this is probably the first time where I wanted to pass on a message to an author. And yeah, I'm actually interested in following your next work, which is Unjo ni Otaite Kimi wo Matsu, or I'm Singing Above the Cloud Waiting for You in English for those who don't know. So, yeah, that's about it for me. Thanks for listening, guys.